Episode 304, IRONMAN 70.3 Ohio with Engle. Welcome to the pursuit of the perfect race. I'm Coach Terry Wilson, and with each episode, I bring stories of athletes to you that share their experiences at races in order for you to learn how to have your perfect race. We will hear stories from athletes of all ages, abilities, and races of all distances. So regardless of where you fit in, there's something in it for you. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let the pursuit begin. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pursuit of the Perfect Race. Today I'm talking with the overall winner at IRONMAN 70.3 Ohio, Engle. He set the course record there this year with 4:01:53. This race took place on July 28th, 2019. Welcome to the show, Eric. I look forward to talking about your win, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to be on here.
Yeah, man. So you just won another race earlier this year as well, right?
Yeah, I took the win at IRONMAN Wisconsin 70.3 back in June, so fortunate enough to be able to take another one here this summer, so super pumped about that.
Wow. So before we really get started too much, why did you even want to do this race? I know you're doing Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, so doing Wisconsin, and my coach advised me not to do this race. Wanted to get some more kind of base training for IRONMAN Wisconsin, but my boss and a coworker had signed up for this race as well. We raced a lot together, so thought might as well go for it, and felt good after Muncie. Did kind of a 2 or 3 day taper for this race, so kind of shut things down on Wednesday and took Thursday, Friday, Saturday, kind of getting ready for the race. So,
wow,
worked out though. So
yeah, too bad you don't get any prize money, right?
Yeah,
man. So going into this race, I know you just did Muncie, and you've got some pretty good training going into this race. What's this like? I know you train quite a bit.
Yeah, so kind of recently, as I'm kind of ramping up for Ironman, right now it's been anywhere from like 12 to 15 hours, maybe up to 17, 18 hours a week. Kind of a typical week for me is Monday. If it's a hard weekend, I'll have off for an easy run, swim. Tuesday's usually a bike interval, maybe a swim. Wednesday's usually kind of my tempo run, kind of hour 15 with a swim as well. And then Thursdays, bike intervals. I do a lot of my biking on the trainer during the week. I only ride outside on the weekends, maybe one ride a week outside, just for convenience and time purposes. And Friday's usually an easy day, kind of getting prepped for the weekend. And then weekend, like most people, a long ride Saturday, usually an open water swim in the summer here, and long run on Sunday. So nice, consistent. I like to have that consistency. I know it's going to be each week, so I don't have to kind of guess what workouts are coming or kind of adjust my schedule. So obviously I'm working full time, not able to kind of be as flexible as some other people. So it's nice to have that consistency with my training.
Yeah. So how long have you been in this sport? I know you've been in the sport for at least 2 years that I know of, because I met you in Santa Rosa last year. I also was racing with you at Chattanooga last year. So, I mean, how long have you been in the sport?
Yeah.
What's this like?
Yeah, so I've been in the sport since 2008, 2009. I played soccer my whole life, and once I got to college, I kind of needed something to do, and there's a triathlon class at the University of Wisconsin that I took. It was like a 2-credit class, and I didn't really know what my major was yet, and so we took the class, and it's 2 hours every Tuesday, Thursday, and it's perfect. You learn everything, learn how to change a flat, learn nutrition, learn all about the science behind it. So I ended up doing my first Ironman here in Madison in 2009, and 10 years later, here I am, done like 14 Ironmans, handful of halves. So,
wow, just a handful. I mean,
probably 15 or 20 halves, maybe.
Wow. Now, have you gone to Kona yet?
I have. I've been to Kona 14, 15, and 17, 18.
Wow. So, are you going back this year?
I'm not. I needed a year off. I'm not the best of friends with the island, so haven't really been able to put together a good race there in the last 4 years. So taking a year off there and hoping to get back there at Wisconsin, and then having a big 2020. So
Wisconsin, does that qualify you for this year or next year?
Next year.
Next year?
It's kind of the first one that's for next year.
Okay. So knowing that you have all this experience in triathlon and just racing in general, why do you keep doing this? I mean, it's so much easier and convenient just to stick with the sprint and the Olympic distances. You can have a life. You don't have to go so long and so hard all the freaking time. Why do the long stuff?
Yeah, I ask myself that question a lot. So the long stuff, I mean, I know I'm not as fast as, I mean, you look at those ITU guys, the sprint with the guys, I mean, they're fast. Like a lot of them are collegiate runners, swimmers. I'm not that fast as far as top end speed. So I know that the longer usually the race for me, the better I am at it. And just, I really enjoy, getting out on the bike, and 70.3 distance is my favorite by far. Just not a lot of stress. You can do it, recover a couple days after and do another one like I've done this summer. The full Ironman is always kind of that elusive unicorn that I want to kind of have the perfect race there. But obviously there's a lot that goes into a full Ironman race, and you can only do a few of those, or even just one a year. I've done 3 in a year, and I've got burnt out by the third one for sure, and don't recommend that unless you have a lot of free time to burn. But yeah, the full and half Ironman distance, I just love the distances and just love being able to kind of, I guess, outlast, and just kind of, it's more of a race of attrition than the top end kind of speed.
Okay. Now, does that mean you're going to Nice this year?
I'm not. So Wisconsin's on the same weekend. I thought about it at first, but I was kind of going back and forth. Last year was a busy, hectic year for me, so I didn't really know where I wanted to be. So I had qualified a few times for Nice and turned it down. But actually at Muncie this year was the first qualifier for Taupo in New Zealand next year, which I took my spot there for next year. So hoping to do the Kona New Zealand back-to-back next year in October, November.
Wow. So now then, just to kind of transition a little bit here to Ohio 70.3, you and your coach, Will Smith, put together a plan for this, and you said it's only like a 3-day taper?
Yeah, so obviously I said earlier he didn't want me to really do this race. So he said kind of train through it, see how I felt. The legs were a little fatigued. Kind of did my normal week up until Wednesday. So I did my last hard workouts on Wednesday, and then Thursday, just some easy stuff. Shut it down Friday, and then Saturday, just my pre-race routine. So, my legs felt pretty heavy coming into the race. I didn't really know what to expect. Swimming is always just fine, but on the run, the bike, I was kind of a little bit worried, but I usually handle fatigue pretty well. I've done a few halves back-to-back weekends and usually have a better race the second weekend. So I know that coming in a little bit fatigued is not a bad thing for me. But we knew we wanted to carry fitness into this race so I can start my 4-week build, which has started this week. Yeah.
So are you going to try to get your pro card?
That was a goal of mine. So my kind of trajectory in the sport, I started off just doing it for fun. My first Ironman was like 12:06, I think, here at Wisconsin. Next year I went 11:15. The following year I went 10:10. Then I went 9:31. So I had this projection wanting to go sub 9, and here I am 10 years later and haven't gone sub 9 yet. And I used to want to turn pro and kind of chase that dream, but when I see Frodo come off the bike and at Worlds last year run a 106, it's like, that's never going to be in the cards for me. And those guys are fast, and I enjoy age group racing. And like you said, kind of earlier, having a life outside of the sport, and I'm going to need a career. So I enjoy where I'm at right now. And this has been a fun summer for me, finally winning. I've been in it for a long time and always won some age group awards, but never kind of had an overall win at the 70.3 or full Ironman distance.
Wow. Because, it would be a heck of a lot cheaper, right? You just pay the $1,000 a year, and then you race as much as you want.
That's the best part about going pro, I think. And but at the same time, if I progress further along athletically, maybe it'd be an option. But for me, this year has been the year I just kind of wanted to see what my potential was. I've thought I've been able to go faster in past years, but just never really panned out. So it's kind of wanted to give it. In my head, I said this is my last year. I wanted to give everything I got and see where I'm at. But obviously, I'm signed up for a race next year. So
yeah, you're already doing New Zealand at least.
Got one more year at least, though.
Man, so let's just talk about the training. 18 hours a week. You're doing some 90-mile bike rides, 18-mile runs already, some 4K swims. With all this training, how often do you just get up there and you're like, I'm over this. I don't want to train anymore. Like you look at your bike and you're like, yeah, I'll just play on my phone a little bit more and I'll just procrastinate some. Like, do you ever do that?
I do. Yeah. I mean, the hardest part for me is morning workouts and just the swimming, getting in the pool. Like swimming's always been kind of the least of the three that, I mean, it gets always pushed to the back. Which some people say you don't need to swim a lot or train a lot, but I mean, I feel like swim training really helps all three sports. And my coach really feels the same way. So, there's plenty of days like this morning. Coming off my race this weekend, I'm exhausted and woke up and had a 4K swim this morning and didn't want to do it. Slept in, so I got to get it done this afternoon and back it up with a run, which isn't ideal. But there's plenty of days. But also this year is like the first year I've enjoyed training again. When I get to, I'd say my peak, probably 2015, 2014, maybe kind of racing peak, like not being able to kind of go faster than that or having results again really is hard on training, hard mentally, like as far as motivation. So I didn't enjoy training the last 3 or 4 years and enjoyed racing, but not enjoyed the training, not enjoyed kind of the process, which I think is huge. If you enjoy the training, you have a lot more results and a lot better results. So I haven't really had those wake up on the weekends and not want to ride my bike. I always want to ride my bike. That's the fun part. Maybe some of the long runs I dread a little bit, or the swims, but the bike is one thing that I always love, and just being on the bike, I can't get enough of that.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I've really gotten away from this podcast is motivation is really just a luxury. It's not always there. Sometimes it is, and it's nice to have, but sometimes you don't have it, and well, you still got to do the work.
Yeah. I think, I mean, sometimes you don't have the motivation to do a workout. You do the workout, and that gives you motivation for, the next week or so. Just, hey, I got through that workout. I didn't want to do it. I had a great workout, so I'm kind of pumped for the next one. So it definitely has ebbs and flows throughout the season. I think people underestimate that. People outside of the sport say, oh, you train a lot, you do all this stuff racing. But it takes a lot of mental strength to do some of this stuff.
Right. So aside from traveling to races, training for races, and racing, what else do you have on your plate with life?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I work full time. I work for a staffing company here in Madison, lifestyle staffing. And I mentioned my boss and coworker race. So it's nice to have people in the office that kind of know the ins and outs of training and what it takes to do it. So, and I'm very close to my family. So my brother has 3 kids and nephews and nieces. So, when I have free time, I always spend it with them, or, getting up to see my sister, seeing friends when I can, but, it's tough. Anyone that's training for Ironman knows that kind of late in this season, especially if you're doing a fall Ironman, these are the weekends you need to be on the bike for 5-6 hours. So it's tough. I've been doing it for 10 years, like I said, and, it has its sacrifices, but, I'm happy, and my family is very supportive. Friends are very supportive. So, it's a lifestyle that I've chosen, and, but I don't think I'll continue to do it forever, just because there's things I want to do. I'm 32 next month, and I have some other goals in life and career and family and all that fun stuff. So,
right.
I think there's only so long I can invest kind of this much time into it and still perform at this high of a level.
Right. So how do you balance life, work, and training? That doesn't even take into account eating, because eating at this point is, you have to eat a lot, just to maintain. And a lot of people don't know, especially for higher level athletes, you have to eat a lot more to maintain your weight, not to gain weight. It's a weird balance there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I think the non-race day nutrition is one thing that I need probably the most work on of kind of all my, I think I have the fitness down, kind of the mental strength that I'm working on. I like to eat whatever. And, I tell people that's kind of one of the reasons I race, is because I can afford to eat. So I think I'm trying to work on it this season, just trying to eat a little bit healthier, but, like you said, you can kind of eat a lot. So we have kind of afforded that luxury of being able to maybe take is not great of foods, but really getting the calories we need to kind of perform. And I'm kind of the person that I don't measure calories. I don't kind of measure how much protein, carbs, everything I'm taking in. Maybe I hope to someday, working with a nutritionist maybe, but right now it's just, if I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. If my body's telling me I'm hungry, if I need to rest, I'm going to rest, but just really listen to the body. And I love snacking though. So I always have snacks in my desk drawer. So
what's your go-to snack?
Cheez-Its and beef jerky are kind of the go-tos.
Gosh, I like the beef jerky, man.
Yeah.
So when did you actually start traveling to the race from Madison? Yeah,
so this week I was, we actually have an office in Columbus, which the race is 25 minutes outside of Columbus. So I was actually there I left Wednesday morning, and I worked a couple of days in Columbus at our offices down there. So I was there already on Wednesday and had the week to kind of get settled in the hotel there.
Okay. So you didn't get a flight. You just brought your bike with you. Pretty simple there logistically.
Yep. 7-hour drive, headed through Chicago.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Oh yeah. It's always great going to Chicago. Yeah, but logistically pretty smooth and easy. Actually at Muncie, we're pretty lucky. We took a chartered jet down there direct from Madison to Muncie. It was a 1 hour and 15-minute flight. Like no security. You walk your bike onto the plane, like hop on the plane and fly. They drop you off at the airport, get picked up, and we went right to the race site and checked in. So I was lucky enough to have that. And
how the heck did you swing that?
So we had some troubles with our RV, and so we had to get a last minute kind of arrangement, and it was pretty cool. I'll say I felt like a
rock star.
Yeah, Danielle Reef, yeah, probably some of the rock stars, yeah.
Man. So flying
into the race, yeah. But then after the race, the gang wanted to get going, and I wanted to stay around for awards. Awards are so late for half Ironman races, like 4:00 when people are finishing at like 11:30, 11-ish. So everyone else took off, and I had to catch a ride back with my coach, kind of peasant style in a car. Man. So rough life, I know.
Do you think that's one thing that Ironman should start changing, is putting the award ceremony a little further up in the day?
I get why they have it at 4, but I don't know. 4:00 is pretty late especially on a Sunday race. If it was logistically possible, I'd have all races on Saturdays. Like Muncie was a Saturday race, and it's perfect because you can enjoy the night. You have the next day to get home to where you're going. Most race expos are too long anyways, in my opinion. I haven't worked them all last year. They're too long anyway. So like Muncie's a 1-day race expo, Friday only. You're done, and then you get home Sunday and you have the rest of the day. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to see awards. Maybe if they did something, you're able to just pick up your awards earlier. Some people have to take off, but usually you got to stick around till 4. But I get it with roll down, so I'm not going to sit here and give recommendations to them, but I'd love to see it earlier if possible. Maybe the 45 and below or 50 and below. They do an awards for that, but
yeah,
I'm not going to complain about finishing early. I know it gets hot out there for everyone else, and
it does.
Let them have time to cool down. So,
man. So going to this race, how was the expo? I know you know a thing or two about expos, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I worked for Alt Red last year, and we were at probably 20, 25 different Ironman events, half and full. And I honestly went in, checked in, and left right away. Just probably spent 5 minutes at the race expo before the race.
You didn't just shop around, walk around. You didn't go to the.
It is a smaller one there. I don't need to buy any more Ironman shirts or water bottles or trinkets anymore. I stay away from there, even though they direct you in there after you register. Just kind of book it through and get out of there. So,
man. So, as far as your mindset going into this race, what was it like? Did you and your coach say, "Hey, hit these power numbers, go by this RPE, go by this feel, heart rate"? What's this like?
Yeah. So the focus for this one, we wanted to have a solid swim. I've had a good bike and good run past races. Swim is just kind of slacking a little bit. So I wanted to have a good solid run. I knew a couple of guys that were racing. So I wanted to be kind of limit the gap out of the water there. Had some bike power numbers, running, not really any, just kind of going off feel. And, we have this plan, we have our plan laid out, but at the end of the day, he always says to me, "Hey, you're out there racing, so go race. I'm not out there to win an age group award or, anything else right now. I want to go out there and win. So if I need to push a little harder in certain spots, I'm going to push a little harder. Kind of make some of those sacrifices or decisions out there on the course.
So what does that mean for you to actually go out there and race? I mean, does that mean try to stay in the lead as long as possible? Like go to the well and kill yourself? What does this mean for you to actually race?
Yeah. So, my run this year, I'm a typical past years. I usually run around 125, but, Wisconsin, I ran 118, 119 at Muncie, 120 here. Getting slower, which is not a good thing, but my run's kind of my weapon this year that I haven't had before. Being able to have a good bike and then a solid run to back it up. So I knew a few of the guys, like I said, going into the race, and I knew that they're going to be out ahead of me. So for me at this race, I wanted to be at least within striking distance on the run. So for that, probably being about 3 or 4 minutes back, starting the run was kind of my goal.
But you know the swim is your weakness. So you came out of the water here 10th, not to get too ahead of this, but
yeah,
you know that that's your weakness and you can't be too far back in the swim, but you have to be within striking distance of the run and the bike deficits because your transitions are going to be right on par with everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really, I mean, obviously you never know who's going to race. I had the same strategy at Muncie. Totally very similar kind of play out of the race, but one guy ended up biking a 204 and running a 112, and there's really nothing you can do about that. That was a hot race as well, and my coach and I said, hey, if anyone's going to run under 120, go ahead, let them beat you. I think only 2 or 3 people ran under 120, and the guy beat me. So some days you're not going to be able to do it, but putting myself in that position, and also weighing the risks that you're going to take. Could I have started running with him right away? He was running 5:30s and didn't slow down. I was like, I let him go on the run, and I stayed with him? Probably not, but I could have tried and blown up and took an 8th or 9th place. So I think you got to weigh the pros and cons of each decision. When you're racing, it's not always about the win. Kind of maintain your 2nd spot or a 3rd spot. I mean, so it just kind of depends out there. And Ohio, I was lucky enough, we can get into it later, but be up there towards the front on the bike and kind of seeing the front end of the race and being able to kind of put it into my own hands.
All right. Yeah, we'll get into that for sure. The day before the race, you have bike check-in, but do you also have a certain nutrition plan that you want to nail as far as a certain breakfast, lunch, and dinner? What's this look like?
Yeah, so 2 nights before the race, I usually drink a Gatorade and I add some salt to it, just trying to get a little bit more salt in my body. Then the night before the race, I do the same thing, a little less salt in the Gatorade. So that's kind of 2 of the staples that I always do before a race. And when I'm traveling, my go-to races for pre-race meal is Olive Garden. So when I was in Ohio, I think I had Olive Garden 4 times within 3 days.
Oh my god!
Before the race,
so they got to know you.
Yeah, so I sat at the bar every time and kind of ordered a soup, salad, breadsticks, and then usually a pasta dish it's just something that I know and it's not going to upset my stomach and just get the calories in. So usually I focus on the day before having a big lunch. I was kind of running late on Saturday, so I had Chipotle, which I usually don't do, but it was good enough. And then I had Olive Garden before the race. Usually an early dinner, try to eat by 5:30, just so able to digest before the morning. Race morning, I always have oatmeal, usually a smoothie, just kind of a naked smoothie, or if I'm at home, I'll make a smoothie. But
bike check-in. How was bike check-in?
Yeah, so this race has 2 transitions. So there's one at the swim start. So I actually went to the run transition first, and dropped off my run. Actually, I didn't. So you drop your run bag off there the night before, and you drop your bike stuff off. I didn't even drop my run stuff off because you can go visit in the morning. So I saved everything and went to the bike check-in, which is at the lake. Dropped my bike off. Usually I go for a spin too, so I bike the run course beforehand just to check out the hills and see kind of the course, the 2-loop course, and kind of saw where the shade was. I biked right around the time I'd be running, so the next day, so I kind of saw where the shady spots were, where I could kind of push a little bit harder. Did a little pre-race swim or day before swim. Just kind of did about probably 20 minutes in the lake, which was really warm. It was about 80 degrees that day before the race. A lot of people out there training, just kind of just trying to test out the water and kind of visibility.
What was your impression of the water here?
I mean, I live in Madison. Lakes here are pretty dirty, and I mean, it's a pretty typical lake. Just a lot of boats on the lake. Murky, yeah. It's pretty flat.
Not something you want to really drink.
No. And they had some like E. coli scares the week before too. Like Ironman put out a message the day before the race saying the race is still on. They measured the E. coli levels and they're great. They're how that goes.
Good over here at this one place
yes.
we measured at the other end of the lake. We're good. We're good.
And the temperature is 0.1 degree below the cutoff. Yeah. So all that fun stuff.
Always. Or just they measured it somewhere stupid. I don't know.
Yeah. And bike rack wise, I'm usually an all world athlete, but some reason it didn't register. So my rack was like in the middle of the abyss and not really up front. So I'd like bib 12.99. Usually I'm in the like 200s or something, but it is what it is.
Okay.
I'd rather be by everybody else so you can kind of see where they're at or getting off the bike, but not a huge deal for me.
So as far as dinner, you get dinner around 5, and then what time are you trying to go to bed?
Yeah, so I got dinner, just kind of got everything together, make sure I have my run stuff, all my bags prepared, sat in the Normatex for a little bit. Usually get to bed by 9:30.
You have Normatex? Oh,
yep, got Normatex.
Oh, so were those given to you by your coach?
I wish. This is before he was coaching me. I wish. They did just come up with a new version though, so maybe I'll get lucky enough. But he's pretty stingy on his sponsorship, so.
Oh man.
No, but so I did that. Just kind of hung out and watched some TV. Usually at 9:30 is kind of when I want to be in bed before any race, and usually my mind drifts a little bit. But lucky if I get to bed by 11.
Yeah. I saw your dog in the background, just like looking this way. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, I want attention. So you get in bed. Walk me through what you're putting in your bike and run bags.
Yeah, so for this race, my run bag, got my shoes in there. I've been using the Nike 4%ers this year. How
do you like those?
I love them. I actually got them 2 days before the Wisconsin half. So I went for one run in them, like 2 miles, and I was like, well, let's give it a go and use them for race day. And I had my best run and won the race. So kind of stuck with them. And I mean, I feel like I'm kind of bouncing when they're new shoes. And so I'll take any kind of little 4% advantage I can on those. Got my hat. I wear a hat, trucker hat, race belt, sunglasses. That's pretty simple for me for run transition. Bike transition, really just have my bike shoes. I typically put them on the bike, but this year I've been using a pair of Bontrager road shoes, and they're just not really set up for triathlon. So I usually just throw them on before the race or when I get into transition. I might lose a couple of seconds here and there, but that's okay with me.
Why do you use those versus something else?
I just bought these in the winter, and I love the shoes and haven't really looked into buying any tri-specific shoes per se. Just don't really see the need, especially going into a full Ironman. Those kind of seconds are.
But if you get 10:01 or 10 hours and 1 second or 9 hours and 1 second, you're like, I could have had 2 seconds if I had better shoes.
Yeah.
But I doubt that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So you go to bed the day before the race. You wake up on race day. What's your morning ritual like before you actually leave where you're staying, and how far away are you staying, and what's the parking like? Yeah,
so I was staying about 35 minutes away at the hotel. It was near an Olive Garden. That's why I chose that location. Truth be told, it is. It's kind of in between work and the race site. So, so I wake up, get breakfast right away. So I like to have breakfast 3 hours before the race or more. So that's 4 o'clock. I was up at 3:45 or 3:30. I needed to leave. This race is obviously a little bit more logistically a nightmare just because you got to take a shuttle over to the race site. So shuttles start leaving at 4:30. So I was up at, I think 3:30, had breakfast, had oatmeal, my smoothie. Got a lot of my bags packed because I was leaving that day after the race back to Wisconsin. Did a little bit of stretching. I had kind of one of those roll recovery rollers. My quads had a lot of fatigue in them from the past few weeks, so I was trying to just make sure I felt a little bit loose, and don't really do much. I listen to music or just kind of whatever, just stay relaxed. I don't really get too amped up until it's go time, so I just kind of stayed relaxed and got to the race site, dropped my bags off, my run shoes off, set that area up, got on the first shuttle over to the race site, which is at 4:30. I mean, it's still 2.5 hours before the race starts, and it's like a 30-minute drive up to the race from the transition area on the bus.
Really?
Yeah.
So was this a pretty easy setup with getting on the shuttle, getting over there? Did that look like that could be an issue?
Not really. I mean, if you're prepared, no. But after I was working on doing my pre-race cool down, like warm up, like I was done with my run, like getting ready to head like over to the water and do that stuff. Like one of the shuttles like still pulled up. It's like 15 minutes for transition closes and people are still getting off. So it's like, if you aren't prepared and you're not conscious of the time, maybe a little logistical nightmare, but at the same time, most people probably aren't going to start to swim at 7 a.m. like I am. So
right.
Might have a little bit more time to play around.
So you want to make sure you seat yourself right at the front then.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I always like to get the transition as soon as it opens, just for me, just knowing that I have time and knowing I don't have to be rushed at all. So whenever there's a transition open, I'm typically there right when it opens, usually 5:30 when they open. But
okay, now being that you're not going to be coming back to T1 and you're pretty much by yourself, right?
Yeah.
What are you doing to fill up your tires on race morning? Because if you bring anything over there, you have to get it back somehow, and you can't really just bring your own pump, can you?
You can. They had race morning bags that you could put stuff in, and some people brought pumps, but I relied on what Ironman said that they would have pumps available, and they did. So I used one of their pumps to fill up my tires and throw all my morning clothes bags in the bag and dropped it in one of the budget trucks. And one thing too with this race, so anything you bring into T1, so your swim skin, your goggles, your swim cap, you have to put into a bag after your transition, or else they won't take it back for you, just because they don't know whose is whose. You're not coming back there. So when I got out of the water, I had to make sure that, hey, my swim skin's in here, my goggles are in here, unless I didn't want them back.
Okay. Now, at some point, they had to make the call of, is this a wetsuit legal race or a non-wetsuit legal race? When did they make that call?
Well, the day before, and the 2 days before, and the day of, at check-in, like they had a sign saying like water temperature is 80.8, or I mean, so everyone essentially knew that it was going to be non-wetsuit.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't even bring my wetsuit to the race. I asked a volunteer, an official, before I got in the shuttle. I said, hey, just want to make sure you know what water temperature is. And she's like, yeah, it's 80.8. So I'm like, okay. So just in case I had it with me, but didn't bring it with.
Okay. So in between the time that you pump your tires up, get your nutrition set up, and then head over to the swim start, what's the atmosphere like down there for you?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I stayed pretty calm. I knew a handful of people racing, so I kind of made my rounds and said hello to them. And I do a little jog, 15-minute jog, maybe less, a little stretching. Brought a pair of different running shoes just because obviously my running shoes are back at transition 1 or transition 2. So brought some shoes and just did a little jog. I'm drinking, just kind of have my fluids. I got my Infinit nutrition. It's called Hydrate. It's just kind of like a sports drink, like similar to a Gatorade, just something light to sip on in the morning. And then about 15 minutes before the race, I'll take a gel, to get ready for the swim. Usually I do a little swim as well, just a 5-10 minute, loosen the shoulders up. When they let you, I think most races they should let you, or they need to let you swim, but it's hard when you're not able to get in the water, like a Chattanooga half or some other races like that. It's not as ideal.
Right. I mean, there's almost 2,500 athletes here, so trying to pull safety for all of them would be a little hard.
Yeah.
So they do the national anthem, I'm sure, and then the cannon goes off, and then y'all head out. What's the swim like for you? Because you're probably right on the line, right? Yeah.
So they had the signs out saying whatever your time is, and they had a 25 and under sign, which they don't usually have. And there's probably a group of like 8 to 10 people in in that group, and I was like, okay, I mean, if they want to. Some of them didn't have swim skins on and didn't look like, a lot of, I think, were probably relay people. There's a bunch of relays there. So I let that group of people go, and I was probably a minute, 30 seconds back of the start, lined up behind two of my buddies that I knew that would be kind of contenders out there as well. So, and it was a shallow start. So we're running off the beach. So a couple dolphin dives, jumping in and kind of getting going, in the warm water.
Okay. So as far as this course, it's laid out pretty simple. It's not that complicated as far as the swim course goes. It's literally just a triangle, 2 turns. You go out, then you take a right, another right that's less than 90, and then come back on yourself, and then you're back in transition. What was this like for you? Yeah,
so I was happy this year. Last year we had tons of fog, so you could barely see the buoys. So this year is perfect. To start the race, it was flat water, so I knew there was about 6 buoys out, 4 on the backside, and then 6 back again. So I kind of knew the course pretty well and kind of where I was at. And like I said earlier in the podcast, I wanted to be closer to the front, and so I sat on some feet of some of the guys I knew, and actually ended up passing them. And after probably the 3rd or 4th buoy on the first stretch, I was by myself the rest of the race, which is typical for me. I'm kind of in between the fast swimmers and the kind of the next pack, which is kind of, with a wetsuit, I'm usually like 27, 28 minutes. So I swam alone. I felt like I was swimming really strong. I kind of got into a groove and passed probably 3 or 4 people during the race, and felt strong coming into the finish. I glanced on my watch and saw kind of where I was at, and a little disappointed. It was a little bit slower than Muncie the last 2 weekends ago. I think the water was a little warmer here, but we did get a little chop towards late in the swim, but I can't get too worked up usually during the swim. I was happy to be under 30 minutes with non-wetsuit, so that will put me in contention. Usually I assume that the top guy is going to go around 25 minutes in an age group race. So I knew I was kind of about 5 minutes back starting the bike.
Okay, cool. So with the swim, it's really murky water. What's some advice that you give somebody that's going to do the swim next year?
Yeah. I come from having a lot of anxiety in the water. So when I first started the sport, I would dread races, dread the swim, wouldn't like doing open water swims. And the more practice I got, the better it was. And I mean, for me, some of the things that I worked on were just counting my strokes, or just getting really comfortable in the water. Just before a swim, just going out in the water and floating around. Just being able to relax and be comfortable knowing that you're supported and know you just trust yourself. So for this race, I mean, it's a pretty typical swim. So just maybe saving a little bit for the back half, because the back kind of stretch seems a little bit longer, and some people might try to push a little bit too early if they're swimming in this race, but not a ton of difficulty. Just the warm water. A couple of people gave me some advice, just if I didn't have any, but throwing a couple ice cubes in your swim cap before the swim, just to keep your head cool, or throwing them down your swim skin if you have some ice cubes or some cold water before the start, because you do get warm, and especially with a swim cap on, your head gets a little warm, and just trying to avoid getting overheated in that swim is probably the best advice I can give.
Okay, cool. So you get done with the swim, you take your swim skin off, and then you head up and get ready to get on your bike. How does T1 go for you? You had one of the faster T1s of the day at 2 minutes. I almost said hours, but it's 2 minutes and 7 seconds.
Yeah, so getting out of T1. So I wear an aero suit, a tri suit. It's short sleeve, and but I don't like to have my shoulders restricted during the swim, so I tuck it underneath my swim skin. So I just kind of have it draped down and tucked in. So I pull my swim skin off, and one of my buddies that was out there spectating just kind of yelled, he's like, 5 back. I don't know if he meant 5 people, 5 minutes. So I just assumed it was 5 minutes. So
you never know.
So threw on my top, put the shoulders on, tried zipping it up, and the zipper actually fell back down. Threw on my shoes and got on the bike with my jersey kind of unzipped. So I had spent the first kind of 30 seconds on the bike trying to ride no-handed and zip up my tri kit, which is probably not ideal. But then, yeah, pretty quick transition. Make sure I got my goggles and swim cap and swim skin into my transition bag so I can get those back later. But passed a few people. I think I passed 3 people in transition. I was 10th out of the water and 7th starting the bike. So usually I have a quicker transition.
So this is a kind of unique point-to-point bike course. You head north for like 15, 20 miles, then you go south like 25, 30 miles all the way to the next transition. So it's, I guess the best way to describe this is kind of like a popsicle where that's what it looks like on the map, basically. But you start on the left side, then you go all the way up top, then you come back around, but you end at the stick, and it's not like an out and back. It's point to point. How would you describe this? Yeah,
so obviously, if there's any sort of wind, you're going to have 2 different races here. Looking the day before, I saw that there was a southwest wind, so that based upon the map and looking at it, you're going to have a tailwind the first 22 miles of the race, and we knew that coming back was going to be a headwind for the last 35 miles-ish. So I knew that, and the roads here in Ohio, the course, they're pretty great. I'm here in Wisconsin, and for anyone that's done the Wisconsin half course or the full Ironman here, the roads are pretty crappy. So the roads are pretty great condition there. And I knew that the first 20 miles, I'd want to push a little bit, take advantage of that tailwind. And I was feeling great. I was pushing a little bit higher. My kind of goal wattage was about 260 I wanted to push, but I was up 270, 275. I think I looked back this morning and averaged about 267 normalized power for the first 22 miles. Put me right about like 28 miles per hour. So I was kind of cooking on that first 22 miles of the race, and I think I passed, maybe 5 people, but put me maybe 3rd place by that point.
Wow. So with that, when did you actually start passing the second and then first place? And did you know that this was first place?
Yeah, so I passed second place probably in mile 25. That second half of the last 35 miles, I just did the best I could to stay aero with that wind just sitting in your face. So just tucking my head down, like I could trust the roads. The roads were so great that there wasn't tons of potholes, so I could put the head down, a little turtle tuck, and try to take advantage of aero as much as possible. So I passed that second place guy at like 25, and I could see at a time up the road about a minute or two, a lead vehicle. They had a pickup truck with its flashers on, so I assumed that was a lead vehicle. So I saw him about probably mile 30 there, and actually never caught him on the race course. So he started to swim right off the bat. So he was about 30 seconds up from me in the swim. So I got within 30 seconds of him, probably mile 35, and that gap stayed true. At first I thought, I was kind of pissed because there's a race vehicle, a big Ford F-150 blocking the wind for him. But I heard his interview after the race, and he said that he was going to take the first half of the bike easy and kind of push the second half. So I assume that's what he did. That's why I didn't catch him. Just he was pushing a lot in the second half of the bike and kind of matching my power. So, but on the race course, I was kind of frustrated because I've seen it happen before at Muncie. One of the lead athletes was drafting off the first person and the moto. It's like the whole second half of the bike. So maybe that's something that Ironman needs to focus on. Do they really care about the age group race? Probably not. But when there's a big pickup truck out in front, you just got to be a little bit conscious of how far the athlete is behind them. So I never really did catch him. I just tried to, at that point, just stay within that 15, 30 seconds behind him, knowing that I had started the swim after him.
Okay. As far as the roads here, what's the quality of the roads like?
Yeah, so they're smooth. We're mostly back on, after we got off kind of the main highway part, we were some country roads, but very smooth roads. Not many issues at all as far as any potholes or bad conditions. So they did a pretty good job at making this course, and all the cops and all the volunteers on the course were great as far as traffic control.
Okay. What about your nutrition plan? You want to get 350 calories an hour, so you have roughly 700 calories of Infinit nutrition in your bottle. What's your nutrition plan protocol? Do you want to drink every so often or go off a field? What's this like?
Yeah, so I have my my bike computer on alert. So it beeps at me every 10 minutes. So I try to take a drink of my Infinit every 10 minutes. If I'm facing a headwind and I'm tucked in arrow, I'm obviously going to wait a little bit if I can get to a turn or if I can get up to an uphill before I kind of break arrow. I have a water bottle in my arrow bars. And then I had a water behind my saddle. So I could usually just take the Infinit when needed without getting out of arrow. But every 10 minutes, I'm trying to do that. I actually had 2 bottles with me of Infinit. So I took one, tried to take one within the first hour and then one in the second hour, and just grabbed water at different aid stations. I think there was 3 aid stations on this one.
Okay. So as far as the bike goes, what are you thinking about during the bike ride? Are you just staying in the moment with pushing your power, pushing your watts, or what are you actually thinking about? Because you're not really around anybody. You're having to just look at the road and make sure you don't hit anything. What's this like?
Yeah, so it happens a lot. I mean, one of the problems, or one of the things about being towards the front of a race, it does get lonely. So I mean, your mind can tend to wander, and I think that's the biggest advice I can give someone in an age grouper looking to go fast in a race or looking to have a good Ironman or full Ironman race. Like, just staying in the moment, staying focused about your race. Especially in the swim, like my mind wanders in the swim. Like, I start thinking about the run, I start thinking about the bike. Like, but if you stay in the moment and think about what you're doing and each stroke you're taking, you're going to be a lot more competitive, and you're going to be able to stay in the moment a lot longer. So I'm always constantly looking at my bike power. I have a 3-second average power on my Garmin. But luckily for this race, as soon as I got to within viewing distance of first place, it was kind of like the rabbit the rest of the race. So I stayed kind of entertained that way, and managed my power and just kind of stuck with what I felt like I should be doing. And so this one is a lot more entertaining than some races have been. Like at Ironman or Wisconsin half, I got past probably mile 10 by the leader at the time and didn't see anyone else the rest of the race. So that was a pretty lonely ride. So this one was a little bit more entertaining than in past races.
Man. So whenever you got up towards the front, what was this like mentally? Was this a good confidence boost of where you are with your fitness? I mean, because I know if I was at the lead, like, I'd be like, heck yeah, I'm leading this thing. But you don't want to be like that guy at Boston where he like sprinted for a quarter mile and it's like, I'm leading the race, and then died.
He did run like a 3:20 though eventually, which is not terrible, but so like I knew before this race, I didn't know. So Cameron Hackett was the guy who took second, who was leading the race on the bike, and I didn't know he was racing until race morning. I saw him. I was like, man, because he's won a few half Ironman events that I've been at, and he won Muncie last year when I was there, and he's a very great swimmer. He swam in high school and I think maybe in college, but good swim biker, solid runner. So I mean, I thought I was probably in 5th or 6th place when I saw him. So then I realized I was in second. So I was kind of ecstatic to see that I was within 30 seconds of him, a little over halfway through the bike. So I knew I was having a good day on the bike, and like I said earlier, I just wanted to keep within striking distance on the run, and I knew my run's been pretty solid the last few weeks. So if I can get to the run with the lead or 10 seconds behind him, then I thought I could pull it off.
Yeah. So as far as the bike ride goes, what's some advice you give somebody that hasn't done this bike course before?
Yeah, I mean, depending on weather, like obviously for us, aero was very important for us, just having that headwind. So depending on weather conditions, I mean, just kind of sticking to your power. If there's going to be a headwind or a tailwind, kind of making sure you know ahead of time if you can, and just being able to kind of manage your power. For those people that are using power, if you're not using power and you want to be competitive, use power. It's probably one of the top 3 biggest things that kind of took me from a just kind of middle of the pack age grouper to up towards the front. So just kind of sticking to your numbers and not getting too concerned if the first half is a little bit slower, knowing that the second half will be faster. So don't be afraid to kind of get tucked into aero and keep tight, because the roads are smooth and a little bit windy towards the end, but there's really long stretches. So if you're comfortable in aero and you can stick in aero, you're going to make up a lot of time. And I think I made up a lot of time on people just being able to be so comfortable in my aero position.
All right. So Whenever you think of this bike course, whenever you start getting back closer to T2, it's a little bit more twisty and turny. There's some corners here. What's this like?
Yeah, so I actually enjoyed that because I was taking splits on my Garmin, my bike computer. So when it got later, Cameron would make the turn, I hit my lap button, and as soon as I came out of the turn, I hit my lap button just kind of see where I was at. And it varied a little bit within 15 to 30 seconds. So just kind of a little game I was playing to see where I was at and if I was gaining any time or not on him. So I like turns. I feel like I can handle turns pretty well. So not losing too much speed and kind of trying to stay in aero up until you need to get out of it. There was no sharp turns at all. So nothing that would kind of got me off my, just kind of getting out of aero and just making a turn and kind of usually hammering out of the turn there. So nothing too crazy.
Okay. So, you get to T2. Are you doing anything to start preparing to start running, whether that be a higher cadence, lower cadence, higher watts, lower watts? What's this look like?
Yeah, usually a little bit higher cadence, making sure I'm topping off my Infinit and making sure I have enough water and me cooling down. So spraying myself with water. It was kind of, we take a bike path the last mile of this race. So, can't really do much on it. So I just kind of sat up a little bit and spun the legs out. And then there's one turn right before the dismount line. So you don't have much time. If you're like myself, I get out of my bike shoes before I dismount and do a flying dismount. So, if someone's doing this race in the future, maybe get out of your bike shoes before that last turn there. Cause I made that turn and I only had about maybe less than 100 yards to get out of both shoes and then jump off. So
that's
it was a little rough
at all.
No, it was a little rush. So, I maybe lost a few seconds there to Cam just cause I had to slow down a little bit to do that, but, pretty typical transition. Then, the T2 is actually located in a football stadium or a soccer stadium in Delaware. So it's pretty cool environment to be able to run into.
Okay. So you get to T2, you're in there for less than 2 minutes, and then you're out on the run. How does this go for you? I mean, you're in and out there pretty quick.
Yeah, so I had, again, my transition area was right in the middle of everyone else. I didn't have the front racks like I usually do. So how I put it in my mind, I was by the right field goal pole, and then I had the section of the stadium there's a B section, kind of the latitude and longitude of my bike rack. So I was able to find my rack pretty quickly just because there was nothing there, just a bunch of bags because there's, you don't have any of your swim stuff or anything else sitting there because it's a different transition. So, found my run bag, got switched out pretty quickly. And, I knew Cam was going to be quick as well. So I wanted to just kind of get on his heels and track him down. There's never really a start to the run. We went through a banner, but I didn't know if it was the start of the run or not. So I didn't really know when the transition started or ended. So I just kind of started my watch randomly and ran kind of right behind Cameron coming out of the little tunnel we run through under the stadium. And we ran out on the road starting together.
See, and it's weird that y'all are together that close because I can't see that y'all are that close from the splits that are posted online. I had no idea he was that close to you.
Yeah, he was. So he let out the run the first maybe 0.2 miles and quarter mile, and I passed him, and he kind of gave me, "Hey, go get it, Engle," or said something to me like that, and I just kept going.
The first few miles, I mean, if we want to take a real look at this run course, it's 2 loops, but it's a lollipop. So you're just doing 2 big squares basically, and then you come back into town and finish at the stadium. What was that first section like before you get to the 2 loops? Because you have one aid station that's like 1.25 miles before you get to the actual loop portion, right?
Yeah, so the first stretch is it's just a flat road. Tons of people, which is cool. They're watching people come in from the bike, and obviously everyone's kind of jacked in the first mile of the run. So I had obviously a lot of adrenaline. I just passed the leader, so I was out in front, and
did you have a bike escort at this point?
I did. So yeah, I was with the second place bike escort, and then I passed him and kind of had to push the guy out of the way a little bit. Said, "Hey, you're with me now," and so had the bike escort. So it was nice. He's able to kind of yell, and I told him right away, "Hey, at every aid station, I'm going to need water and ice." So he'd yell from behind me and just say, "Hey, water and ice." And I'd grab Gatorade if needed. But the first mile and a half, I had tons of adrenaline. So I think I had 5:45 on my watch the first mile. There's a big hill, mile 1.5. But then just kind of from there, once you get into the loops, I knew kind of some of the parts were a little bit rolly and a little bit uphill. So I knew kind of where I wanted to push a little bit or kind of hold back a little bit. But I made sure, since it was about 85 degrees, making sure that each aid station I was getting plenty of water to pour over myself. If they had ice, getting the ice under my hats. They had a few aid stations with sponges as well. So making sure I got those sponges.
Right. So, with this, how hard did you have to actually dig for this hour and 20-minute half marathon at the end of this? Because for most folks, that's going to put them in a ton of hurt, but it seems like you were just floating along, playing this strategically.
I'd love to say I was. I guess my legs weren't hurting too much. Like my body wasn't hurting. I was trying to get my breathing under control the first probably 4 or 5 miles of the race. I was just kind of breathing heavy. Couldn't really get control of that. So I wanted to slow down a little bit and keep my body cool, but I also was kind of running scared a little bit. At mile probably 1.5 going up that big hill, I looked back and I'd already put a pretty big gap into Cameron in the first 1.5 miles. So I knew that it's kind of going to be my race to win or lose. I didn't think there was anyone behind us on the run. So as long as I didn't blow up. So I think I had that in the back of my mind. So maybe a little bit of cruise control saying, if I can hold these 6-minute miles, the first loop and then stay under 6:15 the second loop, then no one's really going to be able to catch me. And I got a couple updates on the start of the second loop. Someone said, I think it was maybe 3.5 or 5, maybe 5 minutes starting the second loop. So I knew that. And then as I was coming up heading towards the stick after the second loop, someone's like, you have 7 minutes. So I was like,
how did that feel?
It felt good. But at the same time, I was looking at my watch and I'm like, one of my big goals in the sport when I got into it is I wanted to go under 4 hours. And I'm looking at my watch and trying to do the math. What do I got to run here to get under 4 hours? And so I kind of gritted my teeth. And so there's a couple of pictures, I think, of me just kind of coming down the last mile, just teeth gritted and trying to push through it. But once I got into the stadium, I kind of saw the clock. Actually, you come in and you run like about the last 200 meters on the track and finish on the track. And when I won Ironman Wisconsin 70.3 this summer, they actually didn't have the tape out for me. The lady actually, she's a friend of mine from the expo, from Ironman, and she actually forgot to bring the tape out. So I wasn't able to kind of break the tape per se, which is obviously a pretty cool thing to do as an amateur. So when I turned the corner and saw the tape, I got a little teary eyed and kind of laughed to myself that this was actually happening, and was able to kind of relish the moment and come across the line and just kind of take it all in. It was, so I was definitely hurting. The legs were definitely hurting a little bit towards the end.
But you didn't have any cramping or anything like that?
No, I was good. Yeah. That's kind of, I didn't want to push that last gear and come up with a cramp and have to walk and then maybe lose the lead. So, I think that was in the back of my mind. So maybe if I would have had someone pushing me for the race, if someone would have stuck with me a little longer, maybe I would have been able to throw down a little bit faster run. But when you're up that front, something I got to learn now that I've been up the front the last few races is how to race yourself. So I kind of told my coach that, and he said we're going to work on that, just being able to race yourself and push yourself when no one else is around. Yeah,
because I mean, looking at this compared to Muncie, you were only like 20 seconds off your PR.
Yeah. So I felt like it was a faster day here in Ohio. But I think with the bike, a little bit of wind on the bike. I mean, my bike split was pretty similar to Muncie. Swim is pretty similar as well. So I think the run was just a little bit slower. Elevation wise, Muncie didn't really have any hills. There was some rollers, but Ohio definitely had a few kickers in there.
Right. So what's some advice that you give somebody for the run course here?
Yeah. So for us being such a hot year, and last year was hot as well, there are stretches of shade, and you can really, I mean, there's a ton of difference in temperature wise. So if you can really push there's a good mile or mile 2 stretch of shade that you can really just push. And same with the downhills. Just really take advantage of the shady spots in the downhills and don't get overheated on the warm sections or the uphills. And then lastly, like I said, when I did it, like every aid station, you're not going to win the race by flying through an aid station. So take your time at the aid stations, get a couple cups of water, whatever else you're drinking, Coke, Gatorade, and get cooled down, because it really goes a long way, especially late in the race.
Okay. So after you finished, what did you get to do next, man?
Yeah, so after I crossed the line, I kind of waited around a little bit. I wanted to congratulate Cameron, the second place guy, when he came around. I actually got a little interview with the local Delaware newspaper there. I came to find out that the second place guy was actually from Delaware, Ohio. So everyone was pulling for him to win. So I maybe spoiled the day a little bit for them. They had an article they had an article in the paper, and like the article focuses all about him, and it's like, and then Eric Engle won the race. So I get it. So it's kind of funny. But then I saw a buddy there, and he kind of gave me my splits. I was curious what my splits were, if I went under 4 or not, but I knew it. I came across the line, it was like 4:02 something. And I had started like 30 seconds later. So, then they had actually some ice baths there. So I just popped in one of those for a while, but probably 30 minutes after the race, I hopped in my car and drove back to my hotel to pack up my stuff. And then actually came back to the expo to see some people and, snag my award and get out of there.
Man.
And drove 7 hours back home, then back to Madison. So that was a great car ride home.
So here you weren't worried about the slot for New Zealand because you already had one, and you let that roll down. Do you know who took it?
I don't. I didn't stay for the award ceremony, so I wasn't aware of what that looked like.
Okay. So how was this 7-hour drive back to home? Because, I mean, after you push yourself for a 4-hour workout, now you have to go and really just sit down for a while.
Yeah, I was a little nervous about cramping and like kind of, especially like my right leg on the accelerator or something. But that was pretty good. I mean, I got out. I think I stopped once for gas and ate some gas station food because I didn't want to stop anywhere else, and I just wanted to get home. But pretty uneventful driving through the middle of Indiana and Ohio, Chicago. Obviously, that sucks, but made it in like 7.5 hours, 7:15 maybe, back home to Madison.
Oh, that's not bad. So, how has your recovery process since then? I know this is only the Thursday after the race. How are you feeling now, and have you done workouts since then? I'm sure you have.
Yep. So Monday I took completely off. A lot of fatigue in the quads, which I had going into the race, but obviously having done another half Ironman or half marathon on those legs, it's kind of amplified. So been working on recovery, a lot of stretching, a lot of Normatec boots, but have a massage scheduled for this week. Then I got back at it Tuesday. Tuesday I had a swim in just a swim on Tuesday, easy swim. And then Wednesday, yesterday, I did actually did a 4.5 hour ride, just really easy ride, with a run in the afternoon. So then today I have a swim and a run today, and then a big weekend ahead. I think a 6-hour ride on Saturday and a 2-hour run on Sunday. So no time to rest. Got to get back into the Ironman training mode.
Man. So, what's something that you learned about yourself through this race experience that you want to share?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, I had some doubts about, so winning is pretty new for me. And, especially after you win the first one and you have a really good run or a really good race, it's like, I think you put a lot of pressure on yourself to say, hey, am I actually going to be able to do this again? So I had a lot of, I guess, maybe fear, anxiety about not being able to back up another win like I did in Wisconsin, and just going out and just doing your plan and sticking to what you had worked on, and just being confident with your own ability, I think was kind of the big thing I took away, that I was able to do that and kind of bounce back, even though I felt a little fatigued or a little not as fresh as I would like to have coming into this race. I was able to kind of mentally kind of push through and have another great race.
Wow. So, logistically challenging, being that this is a split transition race, it does add a little bit of logistics to it, but how do you feel like this was for you? Because was this an issue? Was it even a blimp in the radar? Because packing 2 different bags, knowing that you have to put the bags or your swim stuff in bags and then head out. When you get to T2, your stuff isn't there, and well, it is there, but your other stuff isn't there. And what's this like?
Yeah. Since I was able to do the race last year, I had a little bit heads up of kind of what to expect. So I think if I didn't do the race that last year, like it would have been kind of a lot more, I think maybe stressful. And even after the race, like where do I go to get my swim bag? So I went over there and they only had my morning clothes bag. The transition bags weren't there yet. So, and I guess I didn't attend I stuck around for the beginning parts of it, some of the pre-race meetings, but they go into pretty depth of the. So anyone that's never done the race before, make sure you get to those meetings because really they do tell you everything about the shuttles, about your bags and everything else. But after the race, it was a little bit more just kind of where do I go to get my bags. But most of the volunteers and most of the Ironman workers kind of point you in the right direction.
Right. So moving forward, you have Wisconsin next, and what's after that?
Yeah, so Wisconsin's the only one I'm signed up for. I have some ideas about other races I'd like to do. Trying to put off signing up for those until Wisconsin. I always say, like, if Wisconsin goes well, I want to do another one. If it doesn't go well, I want to do another one. So it sounds like I'm probably going to do another one.
But another one this year? I mean, Chattanooga's still open.
Chattanooga, it's a little close. I was leaning more towards Louisville or in Arizona. Yeah. I know Arizona's, I think, only has like foundation slots left, but Louisville's still open.
It's a little closer for you than Arizona too.
Yeah, and as far as it's like 5 weeks after Wisconsin, so it's a little bit more time. I think Chattanooga's like 3 weeks maybe.
Right.
But Louisville this year, there's no pro race, so it's. I say that I love when there's pros at races, but when there's not, it's a really good opportunity for us amateurs to kind of relish in the moment and kind of get that professional feel or kind of spotlight. So another one of my goals I've set out probably about 6 years ago is to win an Ironman race. So it'd be cool to do that. I know here at Wisconsin, there is a pro race. So I won't be able to, if I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to take the win, the amateur win, I wouldn't be able to break the tape or kind of have a lead bike or anything. So that experience is something that's pretty fun for me. So I'd love to do that at Louisville. And they have it's called I think Ironman's calling it their All World Athlete Championship, which I'm not a huge fan of because anyone that's a top athlete is probably racing Kona the day after. So why would you have a championship with the athletes that aren't at Kona the day before or day after the race? So that's just kind of my 2 cents on that. I think it's stupid. I think it's a marketing ploy, and but it's working.
They're doing a lot of spots for Kona this year at Louisville, right?
Yeah, like they're adding like 40 additional spots or something like that. Crazy. It's like, why would you reward people that didn't qualify for Kona with Kona slots? You should give more slots to people at Kona. I mean, at Kona, for those of you who don't know, like if you go to Kona and you qualify for Kona and you race Kona, unless you win your age group, you're not guaranteed to come back, which is, I think, silly. I think it should be like top 3 or top 5, or they should have more spots at Kona for people who qualify there.
I think we'll disagree on that thinking.
Yeah?
Yeah, because in my mind, I think everybody should have to requalify again. I don't care if you do win that age group or not. I don't care if you win the pro race. You got to qualify again somewhere else. Like, now it's a new year, new start. Yeah. Do it again.
Like, yeah, I mean, that's fair. I think if some people are able to qualify, I just don't like the one slot only qualifying. And I'd either have none or have more, I guess, in my opinion. But I don't mind requalifying. I mean, I think it's good for the athletes. They don't, because it gets more athletes into it. But I don't think having more slots at a race the day after Kona is a smart idea.
Yeah, there's if a pro wins, the overall, say, Jane Doe wins this year, 2019. That means within the next 5 years, all that person has to do is just do a 70.3 or an Ironman race and validate, and they check
the box.
Yeah, they go back in. That's bull crap in my mind. Like, yeah. Just because you win once doesn't mean you're in the same form as you were then. Like, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, like, I think from a marketing standpoint, they'd love to have having ex-champions back and having a high-profile race. It helps them out to kind of guarantee that.
Yeah, I think you should always have to qualify to get there.
Yeah, and I guess kind of the amateur side of the whole all world athlete thing. I'm not a huge fan of, just because how it's skewed to, I don't know, racing a lot. But
well, I mean, from my perspective, it's almost like the rock and roll marathon stuff because back in 2009, I did 12 half marathons and a marathon. I mean, I did a lot of rock and roll races.
Yeah.
Like, I got all these extra medals, and I mean, it was fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now that they adopted it, now it's like, okay, I think they're trying to do the same thing of, hey, you do more races, you get more rewards, and it just makes sense.
It's working. I mean, it's great for marketing. I mean, it's doing its job.
Yeah. So, kind of reflect on the past experience here at Ohio 70.3. What is some advice that you would give first timers that have never done Ohio or have never been to Ohio or Delaware, Ohio for this race? Because you stay 35, 40 minutes away from the actual race venue near an Olive Garden, but is that really logistical for everybody?
No, I mean, there's some good hotels, like 5-10 minutes away, and they have a great downtown area in Delaware. So, really taking advantage of the local restaurants downtown. I would, if I was maybe staying there or staying with some friends or other people, but, I think pre-race or before you even get to Delaware or the race, like study the transition, study the athlete guide. So you don't get in there, you don't get confused and don't get frustrated about, hey, where do I go? Where do I bring this? Where do I bring that? Join the Facebook groups. There's tons of Facebook groups for every single Ironman race, half Ironman race, and they answer all the questions. They can be really annoying at times. 2 weeks out, they're asking what water temperature is, what the weather's going to be like. But
is this swim canceled?
Is the swim canceled? There's tons of information in there, and a lot of times it's good information, but don't get bogged down in that either. Stay off of those pages leading up to the race, like a couple days before, unless you're just checking for certain things. Like I used to follow like the Ironman Wisconsin page, and I still do occasionally, but before the races, usually I kind of stay off of those because everyone else's anxiety is on a 10, and you're trying to stay cool and just stick in your own race. Yes. Oh, so many people that are just trying to get people riled up or get people going. So I had some fun on the Muncie page, I think, just posting some funny things, saying that because people were complaining about different things, and I like to get people riled up. Triathletes take life too seriously, and it's nice to have fun sometimes.
Yes. Don't ever take yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
Man. So how can people follow you? I know you have some sponsors you'd like to plug.
Yeah, so if you want to follow along, I mean, I'm on Instagram. You can just search Eric Engle. I think it's eric.r.engle on Instagram. But I have a blog too. I posting my race report from Ohio today, so covering a lot of the same things we did here. It's IronmanDiary.com. And it's just some sponsors I want to shout out to. Obviously, my company's been a huge supporter of me, Lifestyle Staffing, Infinit Nutrition, Roka, Peak Performance Massage here in Madison. If you're ever in Madison, Wisconsin, they're the best. My coach, Will Smith, he's great. And then Neef Cycle Service, he's a local guy, works on my bike and really got my aero fit from Wisconsin. I got aero fit with him after Wisconsin. I mean, leaps and bounds more aero than I was at Wisconsin for Muncie and Ohio. So I'm really looking forward to Ironman Wisconsin, and just everyone else who's been part of my journey, family and friends have been really supportive. I go out of town a lot, and as you mentioned, my dog here earlier, so my parents take my dog when I'm out of town, and just a huge help there. So it's been a fun ride, especially this year, coming back from the last couple of years not enjoying it. I'm just really, really excited to start enjoying things again and having some success. It's so just anyone out there that's kind of in a hole or not enjoying the training, time off, or just kind of rethinking your purpose of why and why you're doing it. And maybe there's a reason to not do it, but don't be afraid to explore that. And it can turn around. It can be fun, and you can start enjoying it again.
All right. Man, well, I'm excited to track you up at Wisconsin this year, man.
Yeah, I wish I could race again before that, but the coach said no more racing, so I'm stuck. No more racing. So hopefully after that he'll take off the restriction again, and I can hit some other races.
Man, well, do you have some pictures I can use for this episode, man?
Yeah, of course. I can send those over to you for sure.
Awesome. We'll do that. And I only have one more question for you, and that's, what's your definition of a perfect race?
Yeah, so I thought about this question a lot, and I think for me, obviously things are always going to go bad. It's triathlon. If anyone's going to have a perfect race, it's it's not going to happen. So just overcoming things and overcoming them in the right way. And then just kind of getting the outcome you desired. So I think for me, I've yet to have a perfect race, but my first win at IRONMAN Wisconsin 70.3 this year was perfect to me because it was in my hometown. I had a lot of emotions going into it. It's kind of my first race back to kind of being in the form I was, and just it meant a lot to me. So for me, it was a perfect race. You can look at the numbers, you can look at everything else about it and say, hey, here's what I can improve on. But the outcome for me was perfect.
Awesome. Well, I wish you the best up at Wisconsin this year. It's going to be so awesome to actually follow you. Like, I can't wait to follow you. It's going to be so fun. If you ever need anything, give me a shout, and I look forward to following you, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. You have a good day, okay?
You as well.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you were able to learn something from today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to leave a review on iTunes or share it with a friend. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you'd like to see pictures from this athlete's race, learn more about who I am, what I'm doing, or be on the show yourself to share your story, check out my website at CoachTerryWilson.com. Until next time, continue the pursuit.